And a lot of times people that were against that were fighting our own government who was still supporting that regime. They were the last ones to cave.
We're trailing a history of at best, morally confused policy with respect to our propping up or supporting or collaborating with foreign governments that have been acting badly domestically. So yeah, we have a lot to atone for. But the question is,
are you making
when can you start being good? When can you start being wise in any given moment?
I think you're making
an
assumption that there's a motivation amongst the people who are decision makers that doesn't exist. I think you're thinking that they're thinking, now who can we collaborate with and then who shares our values, when I don't think that's their intention at all. Now, they may have a PR firm that they hire who says what their intentions are, but I think their intentions are resource extraction, making sure we have a footprint in the region here, there, and the other. I mean, I don't think that these benign ideas that you're talking about are actually being debated very much in the halls of power. And I've been there. I've been at some of these debates where part of what we talk about is, okay, who's going to use whose spare parts in their military so that we can sell spare parts. I think your idea that they have these discussions about international morality at the highest levels is only for public consumption. I don't think they do.
No, well, I think I would admonish you, just as you admonished me not to take at face value what the PR representative of any government would say as to the nobility of their motives. I would admonish you and your listeners not to be so cynical as to imagine that no one ever has good, even self-sacrificing motives in government. I mean, the governments are just filled with people like you and me, and there's the whole range. There are psychopaths in there, and there are undoubtedly a few saints in there, and everything in between. And so the motives are always mixed. And yes, we have we privilege our well-being, our being, based on the nation-state model of our national interests over the interests of other countries to some degree. But the question is, what is the coefficient there? I don't know. It's not, and I think it's always coming down. And when you look at cases like, Rwanda, right, where we didn't get involved, but now we retrospectively feel like we should have been involved because we just presided over a genocide. Those are cases where we don't really have interests apart from humanitarian ones. And I think there are pure examples where, bombing, deciding to get, however tentatively, back into a war in Iraq to save the Yazidis from annihilation at the hands of ISIS. That was, many people think we didn't do enough. We didn't act quickly enough. We seem to have done just enough to save a fair number of people from starving to death on the side of a mountain. That wasn't based on our lust for oil we don't, the Obama administration doesn't want to go near Iraq or Syria with a 10-foot pole. They're being dragged kicking and screaming toward any involvement there because of what a fiasco the last war was, the last two wars were. And yet we had to do something there because to do nothing was to just watch women and children buried alive, crucified. I mean, just the worst of human misbehavior. And again, it's not. You
but
have
Sam,
to
why do
attribute
they
at
care?
least your own level of moral compunction to most people in government. Now, the system is stacked against them, but
no.
But
let me throw an alternative.
People.
Let me throw an alternative scenario at you. The alternative scenario is we let people, as if it was our job. If we were the God country, we let people die in huge numbers all over the world every day. The reason that the government cared about that was because it was going to be a political embarrassment and horrible nightmare for the policymakers at hand if it looked like, all of a sudden they were going to have blood on their hands the way the entire situation was framed if they didn't act. I think they acted for political reasons and to protect their ass, because if all of a sudden the nightly news is showing all these dead women and children, who are they going to blame? They're going to blame the administration for not acting. It's not some high-minded idea. The administration didn't go into the Sudan where a bunch of people were all of a sudden in trouble in a place like Darfur. They went in a place because they thought, oh my God, our hands are dirty here. We're going to take a huge political hit. The Republicans will destroy us in Congress. We'll look weak. We'll look like we're losing Iraq. Do something. So in other words,
what about Bosnia? Where do you put that on the
absolutely a very similar situation? I mean, there've been a